LGBTQ rights are human rights.
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 LGBTQ rights are human rights today, but it wasn't always this way.
And God destroyed the city with brimstone and fire from heaven. Thus was Sodom and the practice of homosexuality judged.
Do you think that they are in any way a danger to our society?
I believe they are, in my own humble opinion.
Just like anybody else, I think they should be locked up.
For Canada's lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, and queer communities, evolving social attitudes have resulted in a number of important changes in the law over the years, thankfully.
A lower court ruling that would make every practicing homosexual in Canada liable to imprisonment for life was upheld today by the Supreme Court of Canada in a 3-2 decision. The majority ruling dismissed an appeal by Everett George Clippert, a 40-year-old mechanic sentenced to an indefinite period of preventative detention as a dangerous sexual offender.
Up until 1967, the state actually believed it had the right to peer into the nation's bedrooms. That was before the now famous statement by then Justice Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the statement that stands as a turning point in modern social Canadian history.
Take this thing on homosexuality. I think the view we take here is that there's no place for the state in the bedrooms of the nation, and I think that what's done in private between adults doesn't concern the criminal code.
Until 1977, homosexuality was still sufficient grounds for deportation from Canada. Until 1996, lesbians and gays in Canada were not protected under our national human rights legislation. In many parts of the country, gays and lesbians could not designate their partners as beneficiaries for health and dental plans, pension plans, or life insurance.
I'm proud of our party's record as a champion of human rights. Our commitment to equality and dignity of all people, both at home and around the world, is one of the defining characteristics of our party. Pierre Trudeau entrenched the fundamental rights and freedoms of all Canadians in our Constitution with our Charter.
In 1982, the Liberal government of Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau adopted the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. That document has become a cornerstone of rights for the LGBTQ community, as it has for many other minorities in Canada.
As I was a Minister of Justice when we debated in the House of Commons and in the Senate the question of Charter of Rights and Freedom, and we patriated the Constitution, it was the beginning of a lot of progress in human rights. And at the end of my tenure as the Prime Minister, we were one of the first countries to recognize legally the same-sex marriage. So it's just to show to all the Liberals that we have always been at the forefront of human rights in Canada.
I think the important thing to note was that at all times, Jean Chrétien was completely supportive of this. He saw it as a Section 15 issue, he saw it as a human rights issue, he saw it as a clear area of discrimination, and he was going to change that.
Both at the provincial and federal level, Liberals continued the push toward equality. Liberals understand that when we as a nation protect minority rights, we are protecting our multicultural nature. We are reinforcing the Canada we cherish. We are saying proudly and unflinchingly that defending rights, not just those that happen to apply to us, not just those that everyone else approves of, but all fundamental rights. This is the core of what it means to be a Canadian.
I remember in 1982 as Mayor of Toronto going to the Ontario Legislature to support an amendment to the Ontario Human Rights Code to put in sexual orientation as being prohibited grounds for discrimination.
To do the right thing was to respect the equality right provided for by the Canadian Charter of Rights. And that was my deep conviction, and I'm proud that we've decided to move forward in preparing the bill that we then sent to the Supreme Court of Canada. And today, you know what? I'm proud that we have probably the best legislation of that kind in the world.
Freedom and equality are not the exclusive purview of the few, but the cherished gifts of all citizens.
Because I believe in a Canada where rights are safeguarded, liberties are protected, and all Canadians are treated equally under the law.
When it comes to the matter of rights, I don't care if the numbers are 10-1. I will stand by my conscience, and I will vote for what I believe is the Charter.
The Charter is distinctly Canadian, embodying our values of equality, freedom, and respect.
But the next frontier now for us really is the world. And for Canada to be a champion of human rights, we also have to be a champion of gay rights. That's the reality of our situation today. That's who we are as Canadians.
By 2004, the wheels were set in motion for what would become the pinnacle of Liberal Party success in promoting and supporting LGBTQ rights in Canada. It started with the Young Liberals of Canada. They moved a motion legalizing same-sex marriage, which ultimately became a priority resolution at the National Biennial Convention. With their work and support from across the country, the resolution was ultimately adopted by the vast majority of 2,500 delegates to the convention. At that convention, Prime Minister Paul Martin tackled the controversial issue of same-sex marriage head-on. He focused in particular on Liberals' devotion to the Charter. He said his most important pledge of all had nothing to do with programs or money, but rather, and I quote, to protect and defend the values that define us, an unflinching allegiance to the freedoms enshrined in the Charter of Rights, unquote.
Mr. Speaker, this is an important day. The attention of our nation is focused on this chamber, in which John Diefenbaker introduced the Bill of Rights, in which Pierre Trudeau fought to establish the Charter of Rights and Freedom.
Let's remind ourselves of the debates that we had in this House when we first introduced changes to the criminal code to protect gay and lesbian couples from being attacked on our streets. When we then introduced the Human Rights Code changes, which ensured there would be not discrimination. When we then went on to ensure that people could get their pension rights and be treated equally if they had the same status as people of heterosexual couples that had civil unions.
The state must not say to them that it passes moral judgment. The state says your relationship is not legitimate, because it's the worst type of discrimination. It's institutional discrimination. It's the state passing moral judgment on the equality of a relationship. Mr. Speaker, I will not stand for it, and I am proud to support this legislation. Thank you.
I would urge the members of this House to vote in favor of C-38 and to let our gay and lesbians of Canada know that the institution of civil marriage is as open to them as it is to heterosexual Canadians.
What I want to do is go beyond tolerance. I don't want us talking about tolerance as a goal for this country. We need to talk about respect, openness, friendship, acceptance. To simply tolerate someone and their differences might be great in some parts of the world where there are real intense conflicts. But we should be demanding more of ourselves and more of our fellow citizens.
The pride that I had in my country and in my party of being part of a government that had actually passed the legislation that allowed me to marry the person I love is pretty profound and quite remarkable.
As a gay man, I was so privileged to have a chance in this wonderful country called Canada to marry my partner Christopher north of Elliott Lake a few years ago. And now we're very, very hopeful of being able to extend our love and our embrace to build a family. And we're really, really excited about the prospects of adopting a child soon through Toronto Children's Aid.
The road toward equality for Canada's LGBTQ community has been a long and sometimes bumpy one. As Liberals, we can take pride in the initiatives, the perseverance, and the fact that from within the caucus and across the country, we have stood together to fight for equality. It started with small groups and kitchen tables, regional discussion groups, and finally a national biennial convention and the law of the land. We can take rightful pride for being a place in the world where people feel truly equal And much of that feeling has to do with the legislative groundwork that was set by the Liberal Party.
Sous les premiers ministres Chrétien et Martin, notre parti a inscrit l'orientation sexuelle dans la loi canadienne sur les droits de la personne. Aussi, nous avons élargi aux couples homosexuels les prestations fédérales et fait en sorte que nos lois sur le mariage soient fondées sur le principe de l'égalité.
There is still a road ahead for the LGBTQ community in Canada. Issues like parenting, gender identity, health, young people who are still afraid to openly declare themselves gay. The list goes on. But together we believe there are solutions. Liberal Pride Fierté Libérale was born out of a sense that Liberals are there to find solutions. Over the next number of months and years, Liberal Pride Fierté Libérale wants to work with all Liberals, and indeed the rest of the country, in moving the benchmark forward. We have a great 40-year history as Liberals. We have helped create and shape a new Canada. And Liberal Pride Fierté Libérale wants to make sure that as Liberals, we are at the cutting edge of the next generation of equality.
We salute Liberal Pride and stand with them to defend the cause of freedom and dignity for all Canadians.
Congratulations, Liberal Pride.
Félicitations à Fierté Libérale.
Congratulations to Liberal Pride.
Congratulations to Liberal Pride.
Congratulations to Liberal Pride.
Congratulations, Liberal Pride.
Félicitations, la fierté libérale.